29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
22. 21.
20.
19.
18.
17.
16.
15.
14.
13. 12.
11.
10.
8.
6.
6. What happened to 7?
7.
5.
4.
3.
2. 1.
0.
Well, guys, you ever wonder why I do a 30-second? It's not just so that I can drop an F-bomb and not get demonetized. It's because I always forget something, and that gives me 30 seconds, basically, to go get stuff. So, you guys know what's going on. We're going to do an actual podcast-style live tonight. I got Israel from Arcane Designs. This is the new one that came out, The Abyss. I really do like this. So we're going to talk to him about a few things. If you happen to be if you happen to be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, there is a full video version of this available. I will drop a link to that in the description for the podcast. And I would like to remind everyone this channel is self-sponsored. I've been starting to put that video so that if you go to any of my videos, there's a ton of affiliate links where you can purchase things through Blade HQ. I don't have Knife Center yet, but Blade HQ and Amazon, all kinds of stuff where it's just basically the sports channel. I also have a merchandise store where you can purchase my merchandise. So not to harp on that anymore, let's bring in Israel so you guys can talk to him, because I think we only have about an hour. Well, howdy.
Hey.
We got like 11 people here already.
Cool. That's awesome. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
So what's my favorite book up there on them shelves? That's not an actual shelf.
Dude, try say EDC. What's good, dude?
Yeah. Cole's one of my favorite people.
Yeah,
Cole's
awesome.
good, dude.
His wife I got to meet for the first time at Blade Show, and it was really cool.
Mock Clown, thank you very much for becoming a member, or re-becoming a member. I believe you were a member at one point. First off, my condolences on Elijah. I know that he was a really good friend of yours. He was a really good friend of mine.
Yeah.
It really kind of sucked, and I just wanted to reach out and say my condolences. I did see that they had like a memorial to him on a wall at Blade Show. Even though I couldn't go, I did see pictures of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I appreciate that. He touched a lot of people, in this community, and he was a good friend, and he's definitely going to be missed for sure. But I think Blade Show, they did it right. Beg Knives, Jeremiah from PBK, Nick Chuppin from NCC Knives, a lot of his friends and stuff put a lot of things together for that beautiful mural. Where a bunch of people, got to write down notes or ways that he inspired them, things like that. And so it was pretty powerful. It was really cool to see kind of the community pay homage to, I would say one of the top designers in our industry, honestly, ever when it comes to cutlery. So, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely had some unique stylings and things like that. I just used, there's a video that goes up Monday where I had the eschaton. It was
Nice.
the first one of his designs I'd ever seen, and I was like, it's just so off the wall and insane, but it still works. It's still functional.
Yeah,
so.
it's wild. I have a couple of his knives, and yeah, they are wild. But now they're kind of relics to me. They're not going anywhere. So,
well, I don't have an eschaton. That's actually that's Elliot Williamson's eschaton, and I do have to get it back to it. But I can borrow that. I'm pretty sure I can borrow that knife anytime.
Basically yours. Yeah. How
Yeah,
close
it's not
you guys
mine.
are, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I could get it anytime. So I actually, I have some stuff that was Elijah's that was here, and we just kept trying to get, I was trying to get him to come and pick it up, or I was like, hey, give me your address, I'll send it to you and stuff like that. And he just,
Were they knives, or were you working on something?
It was a knife and it was a knife and some other stuff that I had of his stuff. And he's like, hey man, because the plan was he was going to try and come after Blade Show. He was going to come to San Diego. He's like, we had talked about it. We were going to surprise Nico. We were going to drive up and surprise Nico. And
cool.
Nico hadn't got to see him in a while. And Nico was like, he's like, yeah, I can't wait to get to hang out with Elijah at Blade Show. And then that happened.
Yeah.
We honestly were going to try and, that was the plan. Like he was going to show up and then we were going to drive up. I was going to tell Nico, hey, I need to come up. I need to do some stuff, because he's like, yeah, sure, come up. And we were just going to surprise him, and the two of us show up and then grab him and kidnap him and take him out and do something. So
nice. That's awesome.
So I have to ask, how did you get into knives?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if this is everybody's answer. It's probably not everybody's answer, but my wife got me into knives. So
Really?
yeah, I grew up in West Texas. I grew up around like firearms and stuff like that, but not really knives. And if somebody did have a knife, like it was a really cheap one. So I didn't grow around an environment where people like carried knives. And for one of like a Christmas, maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, probably 4 years ago, my wife got me a Kershaw Leek, and it was an all black Kershaw Leek. And I didn't really care about knives, but I was like, whoa, this thing is really cool. Like, knives are cool. They're pointy and sharp, and you can use them and stuff. Like, that's awesome. So I started carrying it. I started using it, and then it got dull virtually immediately. And I was like, oh, okay. Is it supposed to do this? Because it's a $60 knife, you know? So I was kind of freaking out, like, hey, this is high quality stuff. Like, it should last me a lifetime kind of thing. And so that forced me to kind of go on YouTube and start looking up the Kershaw Leek and how to maintain it and how to like what blade material was. Like, in my mind, steel was steel. Like, I had no differentiating factor for what quality was or anything like that. So that was a really interesting rabbit hole. And then I found knife reviewers, and actually your channel was one of them. I remember the Crazy Sharp kind of popping up, and I'd be like,
oh, wow.
Huh?
I was like, oh wow! I was kind of surprised.
No, totally. It was
that time. There wasn't a lot. I didn't have a lot of content up, and no one saw my stuff.
Yeah, well, I remember watching. I believe you had like a sharpening video of a Gavco or something, like somebody. It was when you were doing videos of the knives that were coming in for people.
Oh yeah, that the only reviews I did was stuff that came in for sharpening. Yeah.
So I remember there was like, after a while, like there was a knife that I really liked. It was Gavco Spinner with CKF, or I think that's what you were sharpening. So I found your video because it was.
If it was a spinner, it was either CKF or or it may have been one of Elliot's.
It might have been.
He did with Mike, because I sharpened a lot of those. At
yeah.
That time I was sharpening for those guys. Hey, let me real quick do this. Hey, Mock Clown, thank you very much. $20 donation. Thanks for the 20 bones. I appreciate it.
Look at that.
I don't know how loud that is on y'all's side. I'm afraid that like I never rewatched these, so I never know like when I hit those sound effects. I'm like, I don't know if they're blowing out their eardrums.
Yeah,
doesn't bother me.
That's hilarious. Yeah, so after that, I found like, you know, all the classic YouTube reviewers that were doing it, Nick Shabazz and a couple other people.
Jim Skelton.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jim Skelton. He did a big video about tough knives, and I just remember seeing Jeff Blovelt's stuff, and I was like, whoa, this absolutely changed my mind, because it was the first time that I saw beautiful like artistry in something that was utilitarian. And I never like kind of put those two things together. I'd always think like, all right, well, you have fancy art and that goes on a wall, and then you have like a user knife kind of thing, you know? But seeing the two worlds merge of like, you can have a beautiful piece of art with gorgeous metal and it's handmade and everything like that. And then also at the same time, like have it be usable, and you can carry it day to day and it will do what you need it to do. So I fell in love with the merging of two worlds, the utility side and the aesthetic side,
where you can have something that's functional and usable, that's still like pocket jewelry. Like I get it. That's why Farron Forge Maker's Choices were so popular when they would do it, and they never had a problem selling those 10. Like, people are like, Jesus, $1,000 knife when I can get the exact same knife for half the price. And I'm like, you're getting a hand carved specialty item. Is it the same knife? Yeah, but is it artistically? It's not. I mean, it for all intents and purposes, it's the same blade. It's the same material. All it was is Elliot would carve it, but you got that additional artwork to it.
Yeah.
So let me hit these up. Javon and Hiking with the Biking. Thank you very much for the donation.
Oh, the man hiking with the Viking. What's up, dude?
So I was going to say, you're saying like 4 years ago. I think it might have been a little bit longer than that you got into knives, because I remember seeing your 3D printed prototype at, what was that, 2018 Blade Show in Portland, the first time we met.
So well, I mean, it's me finding a knife was in Christmas of 2017. I immediately in February started designing.
Okay.
And then I went to Blade Show in 2018. So it was a pretty quick. So 2018 to 22, it's 4 years.
And so that went from you designing and I joked with you, and I was 100% joking. You brought me one, and it didn't have a stop pin, and it was just a 3D printed model. And I flipped the flipper tab, and I was like, I think you got a stop pin issue.
Yeah.
And then you went from that to what is ostensibly one of the most attractive flipper knives on the market today. I'm not saying that maybe next week there won't be something, but that really, really pops.
Yeah,
the lines on that knife, and then the fact that not only is it attractive, you did it to the point where it's going to be functional. A lot of times you get these knives that, down here where they do the hollow, it's really good, but then up here it's thick. This thing is not. This has no problems cutting.
Yeah, it'll move
for
sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I remember going to that first one, and I was introduced to Nick Shabazz, and he was like, "Man, it's got a really horrible action. It's like obvious plastic." So yeah, I think
you told me, you're like, Nick. I think Nick Shabazz just told me the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was a really quick turnaround, and I think what happened was, since I dove into it so quickly and fell in love with it, I was at this transition point where, like, creativity, I used to play music a ton, and I used to be in a bunch of bands and things like that. And it was at the time that a friend of mine who I made music with, like, moved away. And so our band kind of dissolved. And when I saw that artistry and, like, beautiful, like, aesthetic lines and stuff could turn into functionality, I just immediately fell in love with pocket knives. And so I went to Blade HQ, because I'm like, all right, like, now that this Kershaw leak doesn't work well, and I know because of reviewers that there are better knives out there, and there are thousands of designs out there, I'm going to find the perfect one for me in the price range that I want to do. And on Blade HQ, you can kind of go on the side and choose the blade shape. You can choose the size, you can choose materials, all that stuff. So I set it up like how I wanted, and nothing popped up. Like, nothing that was an American Tonto was my first design in certain materials.
The Necronaut.
Yeah, the Necronaut.
That was the first one I reviewed, and I
got one right here. I just have a couple of around. So it's a 3.5 inch American Tanto blade. And I
said it when I reviewed it, like, I like the knife. It just didn't fit my hand as well as some other ones. But this one, like I said it in a video, I was like, I'm not 100% what's different in the shape of the handle. But this one is, I was like, oh yeah, that's it.
More than likely, it's the primary finger choil, and you see how, like, the back of this is completely straight. On that one, it has a little bit of scoop, and so that's
it's got a little dent there. I'm getting chewed up by mosquitoes out here tonight. It's still 77 degrees in the garage, and I had the door open trying to cool it off out here, and I just realized that, like, right before I set this up, I could hear the of mosquitoes, and I'm just out here in shorts getting chewed up.
No, dude, come on now.
So everybody in the comment section, I just want to let you guys know, like, I know that typically I read a lot of the comments, but we're doing this. I'm doing the actual Beer and Blades podcast, even though I can't drink right now. So that's why I'm not reading a lot of the comments. I'm sorry.
Nice. Yeah, we can save them to the end or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you see something that you want to respond to.
So here's the thing. I can't see anything. So
you can't see the comments?
No, I can't see the comments. So
are you on a phone?
No, I'm on a computer.
You should be able to see the comments.
Where should I look?
There should be. I don't. If you go to the actual screen, you should be able to minimize the actual screen that we're on, and you should see a sidebar where there's a bunch of comments, because That's how I'm pulling up stuff like this. Like, because
There's private chat. Oh shoot, dude, that's sick. Okay.
okay, so yeah, if you can see it now.
Yeah, I can see it. Seltzer.
Yeah, so if you
okay,
see,
cool.
yeah, if you
All
see
right,
any
hey,
comments that
everybody.
you want to address, just let me know and just tell me and say, hey, you know, so and so, I can pull that comment up for you.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Yeah, so I basically was looking for a knife. I couldn't find one that I wanted, and I got trapped into a snow blizzard in February in Seattle, and literally the entire city shut down for 2 weeks. And so I was like, how hard could it be to draw and design one? Because I had a lot of lines in my head. Since I was a little kid, I had a very like angular aesthetic. Like if you just handed me a piece of paper, I would draw really sharp angular lines. And I thought like, that's just, nobody in my school when I was like 8 years old did that. It was just, you know, they would draw puppies or whatever. And I just remember drawing very sharp, rigid, like mountains or weird geometric shapes. And then I realized like, whoa, maybe this is why I have that like visual aesthetic. And so I like, let's try to draw something and see if I can design a perfect knife in my mind at the time. And after that, it just kind of the ball went rolling from there, and started picking up Fusion 360. And it's a great software that I learned to design. So yeah.
Nice. So what is the favorite knife you've ever owned?
Oh shoot, dude.
So you had, I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, this was a gift, so it was more important. But like, as far as like what you had that you liked the most, that you carried the most.
That's a great question. I'm obviously going to answer not one of my designs because I don't think that's very fair.
Oh no, that's absolutely fair. If you like, because you designed, like, that's why we have a sea snake. That's why we have a stonefish. I could not find a combat knife I liked when I was in the military, so I decided I was going to design one that would have been. So if you ask me what my favorite combat knife would be, it's going to be the stonefish. I designed it for me, so that's not being
totally,
that's not at all being like full of yourself. If that you
Yeah.
designed those knives for you.
Right. Well, yeah, that was one of the reasons I couldn't find anything that was really drawn to. I will say that my favorite knife, oh, it's tough because I bought like 3 really cool knives at Blade Show. And so I haven't carried a ton of them, but they are like true grails in my opinion. I think my favorite knife that I've ever owned was a David Mosier Scourge. And David Mosier is a custom knife maker that's been doing it for like 25 years.
Yeah.
I believe he taught Kendrick, another custom knife maker that makes amazing stuff. And it was so nice. And that I actually didn't carry it a lot. And, you know, like once you pass the threshold of a custom knife and you pay more than $1,000 for a knife, you're like, all right. Like I just couldn't break the barrier of feeling comfortable using that. So I sold it.
No idea. I hear people say that, but I've never had a Safe Queen. Like this is literally in my pocket every day, and I use it for breaking down cardboard.
Yeah.
I use it for everything. I was actually I had to fix the tip on it not long ago because as out of character for me, I couldn't find anything else, and I had to break a box down, and I had to pry those, you know, those big brass staples.
Yeah.
And so
totally.
I actually used. I'm like, I fucking hate doing this, but I was not. I was helping a friend unbox some stuff, and there was just nothing else. And I'm like, I don't even have a pry bar in my pocket. I used the tip of my Norseman to.
Oh my gosh, that's like, mistake number 1.
And he's like, no, I didn't knock the tip off of it. I just like got like part of the edge, like just
okay,
the edge a little bit on it. He was like, well, you don't worry about that knife, and I'm like, I do. He's like, how much is that thing worth? And I was like, how much you pay for that? I was like,
totally.
I don't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
$1,000.
But I think one like the coolest after I sold that one, like I kept a lot of funds for Blade Show, and I got 2 really killer knives. One of them was the Hawk Deadlock Model C.
Oh,
and
I haven't got to see one yet. Yeah,
dude, this thing is awesome. It has a Damascus inlay. There's only a couple of them made like this.
Hang on a second. Let me.
Oh yeah, can you see that?
Yeah.
It's a really, really cool inlay. I was at the pit. Dude, that's what's awesome about Blaze Show. You can be at the pit and just hang out with like amazing makers. Like Gavin and Grant Hawk like just are geniuses as far as mechanisms are concerned. And so I saw him at at the pit, and I was asking him like, hey, what do you have on you? And he pulled out this in his pocket, and I'm like, whoa, are you selling those at the show? And he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about it. He brought like a handful of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you selling that now? And he's
It's
like,
what would it take to get that?
Yeah, and he was like, yeah, I could sell it now. So I got this knife before anything. It was like Thursday night before anything happened, and like, well, I just spent way more money than I wanted to. But
so I haven't got to go to actual Blade Show, and Blade Show West, they don't have the pit, but they do have at USN. They have the Cove, and I really regret decisions that I made going to the Cove. Mostly the hangover that I had the day after my birthday, and I blame my buddy, that rat bastard Nathan.
He didn't take care of you.
No, he told everyone there it was my birthday, and then all the knife makers and designers were just lining up with their bottles because everybody brought their own bottles because it's so incredibly expensive to drink in Las Vegas. At that hotel. So, so a knife that you wish you had not gotten rid of. So a knife that you no longer have that you're like, I wish I still had that.
Dude, that is a great question.
I like to ask off the wall questions.
Yeah, that is a great question. It probably is that Mosher Scourge. And I really wouldn't use it, but it's like, it's an absolute relic that I'm like, dang, dude, like that was just a beautiful piece. But then again, it's like, do I want to have like 30 chunks of metal just in a case that I don't do anything with? So that's why I couldn't justify, I couldn't use it, but I also couldn't justify keeping it in like just in a nice Pelican case. And so I have this weird battle with these things where I will collect a lot and then I will go through an immediate purge cycle of like, I don't need any of this. And then I just
I'm currently looking at a Pelican case that is over full, and I had to get one of those ammo can conversions from Nowpack that holds, like, you put the foam in and it's a knife case.
Yeah.
And it's starting to fill up, and I'm like, I still use all my stuff. Like, I definitely use all my stuff.
Totally. Yeah, I got to get better at that, and I got to purge stuff. And also, whenever I come out with the design that I really like, I'm like, oh, dude, I'll keep like 5 or 6 of them, pass them on to my kids. And at this point, my kids that don't even exist yet have like a 6 or 7 knives in their collection, and they're not even born yet. You know what I'm saying?
Nothing wrong with that.
It's like at this rate, I should just chill out and actually like not keep as many. But they're like, I want to keep one of every variant. But it's like
you should use any. Elliot Williamson said, because we used to spend so much time together at the shop. He basically sold all of his prototypes and didn't keep any of his protos. And he's like at this point, he's like, he started buying them back from people, and he started just keeping his prototypes. And he goes, yeah, don't sell your prototypes. So I have my prototypes of anything, pretty much, like not my handmade ones, but like production prototypes of my knives. I had to, when I was making actual prototypes, I had to sell them. I just couldn't afford to get steel and stuff if I didn't.
Totally. So, yeah, I've luckily kept majority prototypes, but there's a couple. There's a dude in particular. His name's Richard his name's Lord of the Forge on Instagram.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, that guy has ended up with like virtually all of my prototypes. Like he just seeks them out, and he asked me right when I'm about to sell them. Yeah, he asked me right when I'm about to sell them. He has this sixth sense of hunting down when to ask me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, for sure. So, yeah, it's funny. It's funny. So yeah, I would say that one, the David Mosher Scourge, I do regret. It's off and on, dude. Like some days I do, and some days I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't have done anything with it anyway. I don't have the guts to actually use a custom knife like that,
I had gotten into custom knives for a while before I got it. Like I joined the military. Yeah, I had knives, but I was like, so I had crappy, in high school, I had like the crappy United cutlery and stuff, but I got into custom knives when I retired from the military, and I was making it was because I had so much money. I just kind of indulged in things that I really couldn't do. I was making like 6 figures a year at the time.
Yeah.
But you added in my retirement, I'm like I I wanted some stuff for me. I had kind of, I had kind of never really had anything for me. I had everything I owned would fit in a bag and I could go from ship to ship. That was basically my whole life. And so I kind of indulged in that and I got into some custom knives, but then I talk about it in videos. Like I got 2 knives that kind of just, I was like, these are as good, if not better than custom knives. And it was the Riat Horizon D and the Microtech DOC. And that's when I really realized that the quality is, now I had a Sabenza, and a Sabenza is I think the Sabenza is the only knife I've ever purchased twice. I had one, and then somebody asked me if I would sell it to them, and I'd had it for a while. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I sold it, and within a week, immediately regretted it and purchased a new one.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So would you say that's the knife that you've regretted the most selling?
Oh, I have one. I mean, I regretted it. And that's why I'm hesitant about selling things, because I'm like, if I sell that, things are limited, especially like, I think from time to time I've got like 8 Ferrum Forge, 2 Maker's Choice, 8 Ferrum Forge knives total in my case. And I'm like, I don't carry them, but the fact is they're only 200 of each of those. And if I get rid of it, how hard is it going to be for me to get that back if I decide I want to get it back?
Totally.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I sold that Sabenza, and I would have to say but no, a knife that I had that I wish I had, if it was me, I had an old, it was a Simmons Old Urn. It was a little folding knife with plastic handles. It was a really nice little knife. My dad got it for me for a birthday or Christmas present. I can't remember what. And it fell out of my pocket while we were fishing along the river. And we looked for it for hours. And we went back a couple different times with metal detector. We never found it. And it wasn't the first knife. It's not like the most important knife in my collection, which I still have, which is the first knife my father ever gave me. But it was a gift from my father that I don't have anymore. So that's definitely one. If I had to pick a knife that I no longer have, that I regret not having, it would be that one.
Yeah, totally, man. Totally.
I could get rid of all those other. I would give up the majority of the knives in my collection that weren't gifts from friends and things like that, if I could get that knife back. And I can't. Totally. They don't make it anymore. And I've seen different versions of it, and I'm like, it just never. You just never can find one. And so
no, absolutely, man.
So, tell me about of your designs, what is your favorite one so far?
Oh man. I honestly think that the Abyss is the best knife that I've designed thus far. Yeah.
I think you're right. I don't know, that dagger's pretty sexy too. I saw the daggers
the dagger's a really fun one, but dagger is so not practical for 90% of people.
Oh no, who cares?
And so, but awesome. We're not in the business of selling anything practical, really. Like once you hit a certain collection point, you're going for like the interesting aspect. And so I realized that dagger, the Antimatter, which is a collaboration with Something Obscene Company.
Yeah.
That one is wild.
It is.
But that one was really interesting because, we had when they first dropped, we had a lot of people pick them up. And then we had like a couple left that were like moving slowly. And it took maybe like 8 months to sell through all of the inventory of those. And I'm like, I get that because it's a double-edged dagger. It's not like a crazy cool hot commodity or whatever, because like most people can't carry a double-edged dagger or don't trust themselves with a folding dagger. So I got that. And then immediately after they sold out, I get messages 4 or 5 times a week about doing another run for the Antimatter. Like, hey, when are you going to do it? Hey, I've been holding on. Hope that you guys would like just things like that. And I'm like,
you get onesies, twosies, but you're not getting enough interest that it would, like, if you did a run of like 100, which would make sense for OEM.
Totally.
Do you think you would have enough interest to actually sell 100 of them?
I mean, I've been consistently getting like 4 or 5 messages a week about it, to the point where I need to put out a survey and see, all right, pragmatically, how many people would actually like want to do this again.
That's the one. Like, you've got to, here's the thing. Here's what I would recommend, because I have done things where I was like, hey, how many people are interested in this? My first merch run was done like that. I was like, how many people would be interested in this? And I got all the shirts. Israel, I still have shirts This was 4 years ago. People, I paid for the shirts. Like, I didn't do it the right way. Like, I went up front and I paid for the shirts. I got all the shirts and I told everybody, like, hey, the shirts are here. Send me your size. I got this many of these. I still have shirts, brand new shirts from that first merch run like years ago.
I get you.
And that's when I realized I was like, don't do it that way. So I would recommend, this is the way I would do it. I would recommend that it become a pre-order thing. And if you get enough, like, you just hold that money and say, okay, I'll hold the money. If we don't get enough, I'll just refund you. And you get a pre-order that way, because you always want people to vote with their wallet. Like, whatever they say with their mouth is never going to be what happens at the end. So get them to vote with their cash first. That way you're not stuck with, sold 20 of them.
Right. But then you also have to think,
I gotta start selling the cars and tires and everything.
The pre-order thing. So basically how I do it is based off of pre-order, because I'm such a small entity. I have to figure out like the best way to, again, garner interest for certain knives or things like that. And so it is always really a tough balance that you have to deal with. Like, it would really suck if I came out with the design and I was really excited about it and I put money behind to make 500 of them, and then I put them online and it's like I sold 10 of them, nobody wants to be in that position. But at the same time, by doing the pre-order aspect, you're asking people to hold off, like, don't use that money for anything else. Give it to my company, and then, wait for a while until you receive it. And what's really interesting about the knife community is that's kind of the only community that I've ever known of that is completely fine and okay with like, hey, you just need to trust me that if you give me $350 in 5 months, I'll deliver a knife to you. And the community's like, yeah, you got it. It's crazy. Like, that's how I got started into this. I was a literal nobody in the knife community. Yeah. And I was asking people like, hey, can you like pre-order this knife and make my dream come true of like producing this knife with me? And the fact that people like were okay with that, like, that would never happen in any other industry. For sure.
There's David. He says, if you're on the fence about buying an Abyss, jump and buy one. I'm not gonna lie. If I had any free money right now, if I had any money, like, I would have. The whole reason that I didn't get, I would have gotten one of these, but my daughter's at Disneyland right now, which means I spent like $70 in gas.
That's where the money goes, dude.
Well, I gave her like, it's a friend invited him up. I didn't have to pay for the tickets. Her friend got tickets. It's her friend's birthday. It's her birthday.
Oh, that's cool.
So they never get to see each other. Her friend lives in LA. She's down here. They only ever FaceTime. And so when that came up, I was like, absolutely, I will drive you up. So I did a 5-hour turnaround drive this morning. Well, it was actually 4. So I drove up from basically at the border up to Disneyland, stopped at Cerberus Knives because I had to go to the toilet, and he was like, yeah, sure. And we talked for a little bit. I got some stuff from him on the channel, and then drove back. So I left the house at 6. I left the house at 6:15 and didn't get back home till like 11:30.
Yeah. I love how Tri-State EDC just said Big Papa Mike just dropped a cool G on gas and food going to LA.
But it costs, well, it's 112 miles round trip.
Yeah.
From here
it's expensive for sure. Yeah.
And that's like, honestly, if I had not made that trip and gave her $200 in cash to be able to enjoy her trip to Disneyland and have food and stuff like that and whatever she wanted, like, I would absolutely have bought one, but I just don't.
Totally. Yeah, no, they dropped on my website for immediate purchase today, and I literally spent from 10 a.m. to about 15 minutes before I jumped on here fulfilling orders. So if everybody, like, people, I see Sharif in here. He grabbed one. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, Sharif's good, dude.
Support that you guys give is unbelievable. So if you grabbed one already, I greatly appreciate it. Yeah, we still have a couple of variants and stuff still available and whatnot, but today was an absolutely killer day when it came to the knife. So I think that is probably my best one and most refined. It's also the one that I didn't have to like tweak the most, like once it was on paper, because this is what happens when you prototype with the company. you design something and you're like, yeah, this is sick, this is awesome, and I've had to come up with the idea. I had
grab
to,
one, blow a kiss for me. There you
yeah,
go.
I saw that. I had to come like with the idea that I need every time I design something, I see the drawing, I have to literally hold on to it for 3 months. That's my rule now, because there's been plenty of times where like maybe 2 times it's happened where I designed something. I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I'm like, great, let's go into prototyping because I'm so stoked on it. And then once prototyping's done, I get it back and I'm like, oh, I should have changed this, or I don't like this or whatever. So I'm like, I've realized you can't jump too quickly. You know, you have to stick with something. You have to like marinate with the design. And if you love a design right now, chances are that if you look back at it in 2 weeks, you're not going to like certain things of it. And so with this knife,
it's the same way with review stuff too. It's the same way with reviews. You get something in it. There's a honeymoon period with anything you get. Like this is the only knife that I have not gotten out of the honeymoon period with yet. Like there's knives that I love and they come in and you have them for like a week or two and you're like, this is great. But then you start to notice little things that you didn't notice because you're just enamored with the fact, hey, I got a new toy.
Totally.
So,
yeah. So this one, the Abyss is probably the most refined one that like I didn't have to go back and do a ton of changes on. So I think as I'm progressing, I'm getting better at figuring out what I like and what I want. And so I kind of have a list of ethos things where it's like, I know this measurement from the finger choil needs to be this long. And I know that I like this, the pivot to be located here for blade to handle ratio. Like I just have certain things now that it takes me a lot less time to design a knife because I've had trial and errors through so many different designs. And then another thing, I just have to wait, you know, I have to wait. Once I love a design, put it on the back burner, take a look at it once a week and just do that for 3 or 4 months. And if you're at that point where you're like, wow, there's really minimal changes and I still love this knife, like that's probably a winner. But for right now, like that's what you just have to do, because I've wasted some money prototyping on something I thought was really cool. And then a month and a half later, I looked at it, I'm like, dude, what idiot ordered this prototype? Allowed this to happen, you know?
Elliot Williamson talks about that, but Elliot's at a point now where Elliot can design a knife and just like instinctively know, but he's designed how many hundreds of knives at this point.
Oh, totally.
And so Elliot was saying that, but he used to do that too. Like he would get something prototyped on the cheap and get it done, and he would get it, and he would be like, yeah, sometimes you spent like $600 to get 2 prototypes cheaply done, and then you get it and you realize I just wasted $600. But Elliot's done enough designs now that he kind of the same thing. He knows exactly what he wants those distances to be, and he can look at it. And so he does the same thing, but he does it in Fusion or CAD. So he puts it on back burner and he comes back to it and he looks at it and he's like, yeah, I should change that. And stuff like that. So he does the same thing. He's just not doing it with a physical prototype.
Totally.
So I wanted to bring this up. One of my favorite things about Israel as a designer, this is from Hiking with Viking. He takes constructive criticism and makes masterpieces. I did a video, and after the video went up, I immediately got a call from Israel asking about when I talked about the finish on the handles, like I would have went with a stonewash, and we talked about that for about 30 minutes.
Yeah,
asking what I would have done and like different things and changes with the finish, just to add some longevity to it. So
totally, yeah. There's obviously like with every single project, there's something that like I don't think you'll find any knife designer who like once a project comes out, they're 100% satisfied with how it comes out. It could be communication with the manufacturer, or they just forgot to add something, or or it wasn't clear about whatever happened and stuff. And so, with every single one of my designs, like I will always do my best to keep my ear to the ground and figure out like, is it meeting most of the needs? And if there's a criticism that's constructive and that I can work on and it would only better the knife and won't detract from anything, I'm going to do it. There's a video. you know, and there's a video where for my crawler, the first crawler that I came out with, and it got great reviews with a lot of knife, you know, reviewers and stuff. And the only thing, yeah, there you go, dude. The only thing that somebody said was Neves Knives, and it was a video that like came out a month and a half. Like I saw it a month and a half after. I didn't realize it was on YouTube, and he did a review, and he said, "I really wish. The only thing I wish is that the finger choil was a little bit more pronounced, so that you could get more of a life on the edge, or whatever the case is."
Oh, the sharpening choil,
yeah, the sharpening choil. And I literally never told Neves Knives like that one sentence just burned a hole in my mind. So that when I did the next run of crawlers, I made sure that it was a little bit larger, and I made sure that you could get more of a life out of the knife. And so it's like that. I think I told him at Blade Show, like, oh yeah, you said this, and I adapted and changed because I thought you were right, and it didn't change or detract from my design. And you know, I trust somebody who uses the knives, and you know. Like, so yeah, so I'm gonna listen to constructive criticism. It'd be absolutely insane not to. So
yeah. Well, I mean, but there's some people that don't. I mean, Jared tells a story about the fact that there was a guy, I did a review about a knife, and I didn't even really give it a bad review. I gave it an honest review, and the guy wanted to sue me. And I was like, for giving an opinion? And I said, overall, the knife was a really good knife, but the guy wanted to sue me, and I'm like, really?
That's wild.
What's wrong with it? It's a review. So I have to make sure that I'm really clear about saying anything is opinions. I think this is an original Gen 1 here. I'll give it solo so you can see. Because the sharpening choil is a little soft on that. And you can see where it can, so I believe that's one of the first gen. But I think if I remember right, that David got this from you at Blade Show West, the second Blade Show West in Portland. So that would have been about the time.
Or not? No, he got it in Long Beach. Long Beach. Yeah.
Okay. So, Aiden asked me a question earlier. Aiden asked if I'm that close to Cerberus Knives. Chris over at Cerberus Knives literally lives. Thank you, Aiden. Thank you very much. Oops. That's not the one I wanted. That's the one I was trying to play. Dude, I don't want to give Aiden a serenade. You know what I mean? Just give him a kiss.
Well, if Aiden pays enough, you can, dude. Come on.
Yeah, it's $2. $2. He's lucky I even hit the buttons for it. He honestly donates in every live feed, like several times.
Good for you, dude. Aiden,
too bad
you were what keeps this stuff alive, man. Thank you.
So, what was I saying? Oh, so Chris over at Cerberus Knives literally lives one or two exits from Disneyland. There's actually a cast parking lot for the cast members. Like as you pass his house, there's a parking area for like cast members for Disneyland. As you're going to his house, I was like, what the? That's how close he lives to Disneyland. And I told him because I stopped at Panera Bread and McDonald's, and I was like, bro, with all this gut stuff I'm going on, like I got to go to the toilet right now. And I was like, Panera Bread's out of toilet paper and the McDonald's bathrooms are out of order. And I was like, can I stop at your house? And he's like, oh yeah, bro, absolutely. He's like, I'll text you the address right now. So,
wild, man.
Okay, so favorite knife company right now that's not involved in the production of your knives. So companies that are what companies you think are getting it right now? Like, I mean, I understand. Like, there's
100%. Yeah, I immediately have like a knife company in mind that I am cheering on, and Heretic Knives.
Oh yeah.
Tony is such a nice dude.
I love TJ. I love Tony Jr.
Yeah, at the point where there were so many times, I remember Blade Show Texas. There were so many times that he was so kind to me, and he was kind to me when I was not a potential customer. Like I had no money. I was trying to figure out design stuff. I just got into it. I could not afford one of his knives. but he consistently like gave me the time of day, remembered who I was from the past shows. Like he's a genuine dude.
Yeah.
And so like I know he's a larger company and he has a bigger has a big presence and stuff like that, but like I am cheering that company on to Kingdom Come, dude. I've always
liked Heretic. I got to know Tony Jr. real well. I got to know TJ real well. To the fact that like one time, I think it was 2019 Portland. Like he was not having a good day, and the show he just wasn't selling anything. He sees me walking by. He's like, Mike, come here, and I was like, what? He goes, watch my table for me for a little bit, and I was like, what? And it's like. So he walks off, and I sold a knife, and I was like, "Hey, I sold a knife. I was pretty sure that's the price you were selling it for, and here's the cash." And he was like, "Well, you've officially sold more knives than I have today."
that was the first show that I met him at, and I think 2019. Obviously, that was a difficult show because it was the first time it was in that Portland area. They were
I'm talking the second. So we had Portland the first time, then we had Portland the second time. 2019. So at 2018, where you and I met the first time, that was 2019. When
got you.
Yeah. So that was the one. Like 2018, he actually had a really good show. 2019 was the one where it was smaller and they didn't do it as well. There weren't as many people at the second one. Yeah, he was.
Totally.
He is absolutely a great dude. I have a Heretic Medusa push button auto that was a gift to me from one of my subscribers.
Nice.
And
I love that knife
with the old H clip. It doesn't even have the ball, like the ceramic ball clip. It has the H clip, and I love it. It's one of those things that's never going to leave my closet.
That has to be pre 2019 then, because I think they changed 2020 into a different.
Hang on a second, I can grab it. Yeah, he was complaining. He said that people were complaining about it.
Yeah, I get that, and he's another dude that adapts. You know, like he just is such a cool dude. There's so many companies that I am really cheering on and that I really like to support. Oh, that's a cool one, dude. Yeah. Oh, it's got the Recurve in it too.
It's the Recurve Tonto push button auto.
Yeah,
two-tone Cerakote. This doesn't get a lot of pocket time because it's a monster. It's huge. But he and I both agree. We both like the H clip. Like, if people don't like it, I love the H clip. It's more comfortable in hand because it's broader, so it spreads it out, so you don't have like one hotspot point.
Totally.
A lot of other clips do, but
totally. Yeah. How about you? What's a company that you're kind of cheering on?
Right now, because I just got to see one for the first time, and I just spoke with the owner, American Blade Works. I have an American Blade Works Model 1 here at the house, and while it does have some issues, it's pretty good. And so I was talking to him. He saw the video, and he was like, "Hey, just so you know, the next version, I kind of addressed those things, and 100% takes constructive criticism." I was like, "That's good," because there's some people that just really. If you say something about their design, they can't handle it. They just really get upset. And I get it. I mean, because, you put a lot of work into it and stuff like that. And I think that the reason I never got upset, because there are people that just don't like either one of my designs, and they just don't like me. But I had already been doing knife design. So I had already been doing knife reviews. So I kind of know how it works. Like, there's going to be things I don't like about a knife. And that doesn't mean it's a bad knife. There's a lot of times it's not a knife for me personally, because size of hand, things that I would use it for, stuff like that. And just the fact that people get so wrapped around the axle about it.
I think there has to be a good, healthy separation of your identity and what you do. And I think it's pretty easy to, if you're pouring your heart and soul into a project and then somebody, gives criticism to it, or it's just not right for them, you could easily like take that upon yourself as people saying like, "Oh, I don't like you," because that's the case. And so there has to be. I
have that with the channel. There's just people that just don't like me. You can see it in the comments section sometimes. You really look like, oh wow. Yeah.
Well, I think it's kind of different because you're also like, you're putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. And people online, like, there's no repercussions to being like a jerk online. So I think that
till you run into me. You've met me in person, like till you run into me at a knife show. You're like, oh dear, I have backed the wrong pony.
I wouldn't want to be the dude who said you had a hideous face and then.
I don't get too wound up. It takes a lot of energy. When I get angry, like it burns so much energy. I'm just tired for the rest of the day. I just want to take a nap. Like I hate it. I don't feel good, and then my hands hurt because I had to do something and that I didn't really want to do. And you're like, I just don't enjoy this.
100%, man, 100%.
So, if you had to pick one knife for the rest of your life, now that doesn't mean that knife has to last you. Like if it breaks, you would be able to purchase that same knife again. If you only had one knife to do all your tasks for the rest of your life, what knife would it be? I love asking these questions.
The Elijah Isham Eschaton. Just kidding. Like it's so.
I was saying, yeah, that's
unpractical.
It's light though. You can carry it around in anything. It doesn't weigh almost anything because there's not much knife there.
Honestly, I think I would carry, and I really don't want to like come off as like, oh yeah, I would carry one of my knives because there's so many great knives out there. But there is a reason why I designed knives is because I thought there was something missing. And so
that's why a lot of knife designers started making knives.
Yeah, totally. I truly would carry the Necronaut. And the reason being is
I'm just expecting your chair to flip over and just see your feet go up there like, ah!
That would suck. I have this prototype of the very first prototype that I got for this knife when I was prototyping it. And I use the ever-living hell out of this thing. I use it to carve 3D plastic all the time. I use it for slashing boxes in my garage. I use it for everything. And I do that because I have another one that I don't beat up because I like to have this more as a memorabilia thing. So I know based off of 3 years of experience with this knife, I've sharpened it twice. And it still works. It works beautifully. And a lot of people don't like the tonto for maybe aesthetic reasons, which I totally get. But this secondary tip is so useful. You have the really nice straight lines that you can kind of chisel anything you needed to, and you have a really strong piercing tip. It's hard to, exactly. It's really hard to beat in my opinion. I think I would care. This would be the last knife, in my hand, it fits and stuff like that. And it's kind of crazy that my first knife is the one that I would still say like, I'm going to carry that, all the time. But there's a reason why I wanted to design, and I thought there were certain things missing. And, I know a ton of people that think this is the most hideous knife they've ever seen. I know a ton of people.
I didn't think it was hideous. Like I said, I liked the aesthetics of it. It was unique. And when I saw it the first time, I was like, okay, I dig that. I think I saw the first one. I think you had an actual prototype at one of the shows that I was at, and I got to see it, and I was like, okay, I can see that. And then I got one in. You sent me one. That's what it was. You sent me one.
Oh yeah.
And I did the review of it, and I told you then, I was like, there's only a couple things, like because I have really big hands, so that one bigger choil, like I couldn't get 2 fingers in.
Totally.
But I was like halfway in, it kind of pinched. Totally. But I mean, other than that, the knife is it's a really good blade shape and all that. I dug it.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of the ability to, can they still purchase? I can't remember if we talked about this. Can you just purchase the pivot collars from you, like in different colors? So you can buy the knife, and if later down the road you decide you want red or blue or
totally. I try to keep that inventory pretty stocked because sometimes people just really want to, customize or change things out. So like the Abyss, this is horrible lighting, but this is Zircutai and a Zircutai clip. Because there are some people who really want a little splash of color in their knife. And so
why not?
It makes a ton of sense that like, Because you can't. Here's the thing I've realized, and this kind of dives into something that's way deeper, but you can't be everything to all people. If you were, then you couldn't stand out in any sort of way, that was memorable, because you would just be another buck 110. And buck 110s are fine, but
everybody loves a buck 110, but they don't.
Exactly.
That's not somebody that's like, oh God, it's so amazing. It's just
but nobody's rushing. Yeah, nobody's running at Blade Show to rush, the buck table to grab the latest buck 110, because it's so what everybody needs. It's so utilitarian. Yeah. It's a good price point. It's what is like the bare minimum kind of thing. Yeah. And I know my 100%, my knives aren't for a lot of people. Some people don't like the angular futuristic look, that some people don't think, the aesthetic is really right for them. And that's totally fine. And that means I'm not necessarily for that person right now. Maybe I will be in the future when their tastes change.
I got news for you. Some people are stupid. Some people, I got to say, I got news for you. Some people are stupid.
People like what they like, dude. You can't convince them otherwise. You could be like, like here's a perfect example. The Koenig Arius. I have handled so many of those. I think that it is so well made. It's unbelievable. And for people who have held a Koenig Arius, like in the chat, or who's going to listen to this, they're like, it is a great knife. To me,
I can't ever own one because it just doesn't fit my hands right. I would love to own a Koenig Arius. They're a great knife. They're beautiful. Bill, I've told Bill so many times, I was like, man, if you could just either shrink that forward choil down a little bit or make it just a little bit bigger, I would buy one. Like honestly, I would. That he's like, hey, the day he comes out and says, hey, I changed that forward finger choil size, I'm like, I'm buying one.
Yeah. But I was having this conversation with Bearded Gear, and I was like, hey, this is a really cool knife and it's really well made. To me, the looks of it aesthetically does absolutely nothing for me. And he said, well, I don't understand why you want to be wrong, but I get that. It's like, and 100%. People would be like, Israel, you're an absolute idiot for not wanting a Koenig Arius. Like, and for quality, for sure, but it's not amazing. My thing. And like the fact that Koenig is not trying to design a knife to be exactly my thing is great, because that means that there's a ton of people who it is their thing. And so you kind of have to go into this mindset of, I'm not going to be liked by everybody, because my designs, in order to stand out, you have to have some polarizing aspect to yourself. And if you have a polarizing aspect to yourself, you're going to be an outcast in some circles, or you're going to be looked down upon as far as design in some circles. And that's okay, because you will eventually find your circle, And so like I take heart in that. And it's kind of the same thing with like the pivot collars, just wrapping around. I designed in a particular language, and each knife has its own kind of story or ethos. And so I come up with a color scheme for that knife. But some people don't like red. That's awesome. You can grab additional pivot collars to change that, so you can further customize it to what you like. And so there's that point where I'm like more, I allow the user to further customize it to make it what they want. But as far as design language and stuff like that, like I think, if you are a customer, like there's a reason why. It's because my knife doesn't look like anything else that you have. Yeah. And I think that's why we collect,
That's one of the things that to go back around to, you're doing some of the things that the Fair and Forge boys were doing as well. Chris and Elliot their first knife was just basically, the knife was all of them were the same. And then as they kind of progressed, there was different milling patterns. And then they went to multiple milling patterns, color schemes, anodizing schemes, because they were able to do it all in house. So you could pick your ano, you could pick your pocket clip color, you could pick if you wanted a ceramic coating. Did you want a two-tone ceramic coating? Did you want like lines or hexagonal patterns or that? And then they did the maker's choice with the hand carved over the top insane things that Elliot just would sit down and carve, and you got what you got. Like you paid an extra $500. Like for $500 extra, I would sit down and carve a knife, and I'm going to put it in an envelope, randomize it, and you get whatever you get.
Totally.
You can't pick, like you have no input. It's maker's choice. And they sold like hotcakes. So it is pretty awesome. I only have, because I know you're on a limited time schedule.
Yeah.
I only have one last question.
Okay.
I had some others, but you pretty much answered them in the course of it.
Oh, good.
What is your Grail knife?
Oh man. The Hawk Deadlock was definitely a Grail knife. And once you like, I maybe am on a search for another Grail knife now because I really like
a lot of times.
Yeah. I would have to say I really, really want a Tashi Barusha, Son of Sam. I don't know if you're familiar with that knife because he does
pictures.
He does like small one-offs. I think he's made like maybe 10 of them or something like that. And that knife is just so beautiful. Like it's unbelievable. So I would really, really love to have one of those, but I'm pretty content right now because, you know, I was able to pick up a Grail knife at Blade Show. And, but yeah, I would say Tashi's design stuff is just so unique.
It's
really unique. Yeah. Yeah. How about you?
There's a handful of makers that really have that unique design. For me, I already got my Grail. I've had several Grails. I always said there was 3 knives I had to own, and I basically scrubbed one of them off the list. One of them was a Ferrum Forge Fortis, a specific Fortis with a specific blade finish. And my buddy Nico, you know Nico got that for me, got me one as a gift. I thought that I had to have a Rockstead Shin, whichever it is, the big one, their flagship model. And after handling a few of them, I'm like, I don't think that's a knife for me. I really have kind of flip-flopped on it.
Yeah.
But I honestly always wanted a Norseman. From the first video I saw from, like, I when they were still working in their garage, I was watching their videos when they started actually taking pre-orders. I was on their list for a pre-order of a full dress, Timascus.
Wow.
And I was going to have my rating badge from the military engraved on the pocket clip.
Wow, dude.
And then I quit my job with the government and I started a business and stuff like that. And I just didn't think that it would be a good idea to spend $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 at the time on a knife, even though I had the money. And so I used that money for other stuff. And so I found one that was exactly what I wanted. It's a reverse honeycomb. Cool. It's in a specific time frame because they had changed a couple things and left a couple things the way I didn't like some of the newer ones the way they felt, but I liked the older ones. But I definitely wanted the dual stop pin. And so I got one, and I can honestly say I have not really felt the urge to go out and buy a knife. I have purchased things for the channel that probably are going to stay. Like I bought that Exo Gravity knife because I had money left over. I literally saved for 5 years to get this knife. And that was, if I found a penny on the floor in the garage, it went in my pocket, and then it went in dollars, dimes. And I had to dip into it a couple times because, I like, this is my job now, this. And so sometimes money got tight. So I had to dip into that fund. But I waited and I got that knife, and I really have not felt the like, oh, I need to get that from anything. I bought that Exo Gravity knife specifically to have it on the channel because there were not very many of them. They sold out the first day. They brought more the next day, and they sold out again there at Blade Show West. If you remember, they sold out like in the first half of the day. And so the second day I got one, and I got the exact one I wanted, and I got it for on the channel because I knew it would be a good video. And then I underestimated how much fun that thing was. And so it stuck around. But as far as like, could I let it go? Yeah, absolutely. I would never part with this.
Totally.
There's no way. So this was a Grail. And I think this was my ultimate Grail. Like I'd had Grail knives before. Like, ooh, I want to get a Sabenza. Oh, I want to get a Microtech Ultratech. Ooh, I want a Ferrum Forge NTAC, which is another knife I would probably keep because it's such a good knife and I really like it. It was the first Ferrum Forge I ever bought. But as far as like a knife that was the end all be all, this was it. This is the one that I had to have. And now that I have it, I really don't feel that urge anymore because like, I'm like, I get to put this in. I get so many knives in for review. Like I said, I have probably 60 of Jared's knives here. Just for review, I probably have 140 knives here, just in for review. I got more knives than most outdoors sporting goods stores.
Totally.
And the fact is, at the end of the day, I walk over to the shelf and I take whatever's in my pocket. When I'm done with everything I'm doing, usually about 7, 8 o'clock at night, I take whatever's in my pocket for review out and I put this back in my pocket every day. And it's something I look forward to every day.
Oh, that's cool, man. It's kind of cool to find the piece that really means a lot to you and is the quality and holds up and everything like that. Yeah. Andrew in the comments said, new Grail is a Sparrow Strix. Greg from Sparrow is the man, dude. That guy.
I have not seen it yet.
It's a really cool design. He has a couple of them that are really cool. If people who haven't seen Greg's work, Sparrow Knife Company, I think is what is on Instagram. It's like a white badge with the sparrow's skull. He is the best dude, like hands down. He helped me in a situation that I needed like some refinishing stuff because a manufacturer messed something up, and he's one of the reasons why this community is so cool. And so big shout out to Sparrow Knife Co. And he's another dude that I'm like cheering on his success. There's so many people that I can cheer on his success. There's so many people that I just want to like, I'm just here for the ride to watch you guys succeed because people are so worth it, you know?
Speaking of cheering on the success, I want to thank everyone that has subscribed to the channel. I have seen massive growth on the channel over the last couple months. Man. We're not talking like I was seeing like a couple, the milestones that I had set, they're falling down. Like I'm seeing large numbers of subscribers almost daily, but weekly it's great. So all the new people that have joined the channel, I appreciate it. And the support, I've had people buying merchandise. I have people dropping super chats. So to all of you, I have one thing to say.
Thank you for being my friend when I needed one.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So I guess, I mean, we can end it here. I'm going to let everybody know here. If, like I said, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, it's going to take it's going to take a while. If you're watching this and you're going to want to listen to it on Apple Podcasts, it's going to take me a while to get it converted over. I'm so busy right now. I actually had a guy reach out to me. He says, hey, what's your time frame and turnaround and prices? I've got 5 dozen chef's knives I need done. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, I have 5 dozen chef knives. I have 5 dozen paring knives. And I have 5 dozen serrated blades that I need to get sharpened. I'm like, that's a lot of knives. Wow. So yeah.
How long would that take you?
Kitchen knives, if I'm doing 5 dozen, that'd probably be a couple days to do 5 dozen knives. But that would be, so I was going to let you guys know, if I do take on this sharpening project, I'm not going to have time to film. So there will be a gap, but I guarantee I will make more money sharpening those knives than I ever would on a YouTube video or two. So I will definitely make sure I keep that in
cool.
Keep you guys updated on that, what the plan is with that. And if you have things here for sharpening with me, keep in mind, I did just get out of the hospital and I'm afraid that I might have to go back. I'm starting to experience some symptoms of the abdominal infection. I may have to go back to the hospital again. So if it turns around, I may just have to send everybody's knives back to them and refund their money, but I'm not sure. So yeah, with that being said, if you want, I will probably be streaming on Twitch a little bit later, playing video games, because I drank enough coffee that there's a good chance I'm going to be up all night. So, Israel, thank you very much. You got anything you want to, anybody you want to shout out before we end this?
I just wanted to say thank you for everybody who either I met at Blade's show or who has grabbed one of my knives recently. I'm a small business, and Mike knows, like, any sort of support that you get is like, we don't take it for granted. Like, this community is giving us the opportunity to pursue our passion. And so any chance I want to be grateful for that. So thank you for that. Thank you for a great first day drop on the Abyss. They're on sale on my website right now, as well as the crawler. And a couple of cool things. So if you guys want to check that out, arcanedesign.co. Yeah, there's a lot of cool gear that you can pick up. And yeah, thanks a lot for having me, Mike. This was a lot of fun, man.
We'll readdress it when you get the the daggers going again.
Yeah.
Or if you have another design. I mean, shit, if you just want to come hang out, we can absolutely do that. So
For
Andrew
sure.
had a question before we go.
Oh yeah.
Any idea when there might be another run of the Necronauts?
Andrew, great question, dude. Again, so I had a conversation with the guys at ProTech, and we were talking about like a longevity of a design, because I've done two Necronaut runs, and they both have sold out really quickly. And I'm trying to figure out, like, when I was talking to the people at ProTech, and this is their story to tell, so I don't necessarily want to go into a lot of it, but they were saying, like, you know, the TR3, which is a really popular ProTech model, he's like, when we first came out with that knife and they sold out, it was really interesting. And so we decided to do another run, and that one sold out, and he decided to do another run. And he's like, now we have a 20-year track record that we know that knife will sell out. Mm-hmm. And so we have like 3 machines completely devoted to just making TR3s. You know what I'm saying? Like they have like a room of 12 machines that make their flagship models continuously, and that's all those machines ever produce. And then they have other machines in another room that are like trying out the new stuff and like a new design here or there and stuff, and designs come and go. But he's like, we have like 4 or 5 designs that we know consistently based off of the 20-year track record that those are the ones. And so I think I'm right now in the process of trying to find out which knife designs are my legacy knives, and whether I have that or not, like, who knows? But it is really interesting to see, like, the Necronaut is one that people, it's very polarizing because it's a giant American tonto.
Yeah.
But
it's a very straight American tonto too.
Right.
There is no, it doesn't, like, it is
what straight. It is. Yeah. And so I don't necessarily know. I'm trying to figure that out. So bear with me. If there is enough interest, I'm planning on doing like a survey probably once a year, asking people and just trying to listen to feedback of like, what knife of the past runs do you want to see come back again? And perhaps once a year I bring back, you know, an older model or whatever the case is. So we'll see. Yeah. Oh, thanks,
All
Nico.
right.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, the Abyss is great. I'm waiting to see his. I know Nico got a special. Nico got a Damasteel.
He got a really nice one.
Yeah. He got a really nice one. And I'm going to punch him in the little head when he comes back.
He's the best, man. Him and his wife are the best.
Yeah, they're great. They were supposed to try and come down this weekend, but he's working. And then I forgot about the fact the kid was going to Disneyland and stuff. And then,
nice.
like I said, I don't know what's going on with my guts, so we'll have to play it by ear. But I'm starting to like, God, here we go again. Like, I don't want to wind up in the hospital again for 3 days. It really sucks. So, all right, I'll tell you what, Israel, let's go ahead. I'm going to end this. I'm going to send you out. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody, and you can go ahead and take off to do whatever it was.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you, man.
No problem. Just let me know if you want to do this again sometime.
You got it, man. Bye.
Right. Bye. So, guys, that's it. Israel's a great dude. It's kind of cool because I got to see from start to finish a knife that he designed that was 3D printed, and then have it see it as a prototype, and then see it again as a finished knife. And it's really cool. And then to see it have grown. There's only one other company that I can say that with, and it's some of the stuff that Cerberus Knives is doing. So, guys, I am going to go and see how I feel and get some medicine into me. I am probably going to stream on Twitch here a little bit later. So, you can always find out it's Mike Emler, all one word, capital M, capital E, Mike Emler on Twitch. So, guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I will get this up and on Apple Podcasts as soon as I can. So if you didn't catch all of it, you can listen to it again, but you can always rewatch it. So, guys, I'm out. I love you all. Take it easy. Don't forget, self-sponsored. A lot of affiliate links in all of my videos, including Blade HQ, Coffee Brand Coffee, a VPN, bunch of other stuff. But anything you purchase definitely makes me able to do this since it's my only income. Love y'all. I'll see you next time.